Welcome back to episode 48 of the Jumping Through Hoops podcast series. So in this episode, I am introducing a lovely lady called Danielle, and Danielle is a shadow worker. And you might be wondering what that is. You might never have heard of this. So I'm really excited to introduce you to Danielle, and I'm just going to hand you straight over and let Danielle start introducing herself and telling you her story and a little bit about what shadow work is. So hello, Danielle. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
Of course. No, thank you for having me on. I'm excited to do this. So I'm Danielle Massi. I started my career as a licensed psychotherapist and found out pretty quickly that therapy can only get you so far. And there's so much depth to each one of us that we need to uncover. And that is how I found shadow work. Shadow work is all about the unconscious. It's everything that your mind and your body are hiding from you. And we all have an unconscious. I think there's a statistic out there that like the vast majority of the brain, like 90% of it, is completely unconscious. You have no idea what's there. Everything you've ever seen, every license plate, every person walking by, your brain is internalizing those things, but you don't remember them. And it's not because they're not there, it's just because they're in your shadow. And so shadow work is the process of making the unconscious conscious. It's the process of pulling all of that stuff out periodically, one by one, and making sure that we really hit the important things, the moments that were maybe traumatic or intense, hard, because what happens when those sit in the unconscious is that it just weighs you down. And life is just a little bit harder than it needs to be. And trust me on this, life does not need to be hard. Life is supposed to be easy, right? Mm-hmm. It should all just be easy.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. So yeah, that's a little introduction, and that makes total sense. And I've done some sessions with you, and I found out about you through the Ascension Academy with Brianna Rose, who I interviewed in the last podcast episode, and I was just amazed by it. I'd never heard of it, and I was really intrigued. And the minute I started hearing you talking about it, it just something clicked. You know, it just made so much sense to me. And the minute I started working with you and being able to clear some of this stuff that I hadn't even realized was there, I hadn't even realized what was holding me back. You know, I was able to kind of, it's like a jigsaw, like all the pieces start fitting together, and I'm able to feel almost free. Yeah. And I mean, amazing. So can you tell us a little bit about your story? And you said you started out as a licensed therapist. How did you discover shadow work? And yeah, tell everyone about it.
Absolutely. I feel the same way about shadow work, that it's like kind of putting all those pieces together. And that was what I was missing. So as a therapist, I would talk to people all the time, and it was like, I'm helping, we're doing stuff, but it feels like there's more depth, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And so a few years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer, and I hit an all-time low. I felt horrible. Everything, my world was crumbling, and I didn't know what to do about it. And so I used all the tools that I had. I was taking care of myself as best as I could, trying to pay attention to my mental health, doing Kundalini yoga, sound baths, anything that would help me just kind of stay afloat. And everything was okay, but it felt like there was still something sucking my energy out at the bottom. Like I was doing all this stuff to fill up my cup, but the cup had holes in it. And so I needed to figure out how to plug those holes up. And through that whole process, I discovered shadow work. I started working with a woman in the UK named Allison, who is just an amazing healer. And as we were doing sessions, we kind of discovered pretty quickly that my shadow was loaded with stuff. I had so much trauma in my history. I had so much karma, and it had to come out. And when we started doing that and using that process and pulling that stuff out of the shadow, all of a sudden I started getting better. I started feeling amazing. And this is not pretty work. Like shadow work is not sexy. There's nothing sexy about it. But the end result is, because you just feel free. It's just like you said, putting all those pieces of the puzzle together and bam, everything clicks. And you just feel so aligned. It's amazing. So that's sort of how I got to this point.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's absolutely, amazing. I mean, obviously your story and how you got into it, and, you know, hopefully people listening that are maybe going through something similar and looking for some sort of, there's some feeling also like there's a part missing, and that perhaps this is something for them to try. I mean, most of the listeners on this podcast series, all of them, but the majority are business owners. Okay. And I'm a business owner, and I've just discovered this, and it has honestly helped me up level massively. Like, you know, as you say, it's like a weight, and it sort of, you have to shift it. Yeah. And it has really helped me step up and create this level that I've been after for so long. I mean, for goodness sake, I've been running a business for 10 years and 10 years not really getting anywhere, really not knowing what it was that I wasn't doing right. I had all the strategies, I had everything in place, everything. And then I started doing a Kundalini, which started helping a bit. There was still that thing that still something wasn't happening. So for business owners in particular, how can shadow work help them? How does this relate to business owners?
Oh yeah, this is the key for business owners. And I found this out accidentally because when I was on my healing journey, I was about 10 years into owning a private practice, and I wasn't making a lot of money. It was kind of a hobby. My husband would joke with me about my hobby job, which is sad because it was really tough work.
Yeah.
And through the shadow work, I found that I started to make a lot of money fast. Like, just like you, I was doing Kundalini, I was doing other things. And with Kundalini, I had doubled my income. With shadow work, I've made it 10 times what it was. And now I'm in the multiple 6-figure range and building my dream home, $1 million dream home in the countryside. And it's shadow work. Shadow work is what gets you there. So here's what you guys need to know for those of you who are business owners. We all have karma and we all have trauma. And this stuff lives within the body and it's hidden from you by your brain. And what happens throughout your life is as your body remembers these things, your aura is weakened. So we have 4 layers to the aura. There's the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. And you might be doing all the stuff to make your aura as clear as possible. But if you haven't done your shadow work, you're just like me, where you have a cup and there's holes at the bottom. If you can find a way to plug those up with shadow work in particular, what happens is that you become the most aligned version of yourself, which means that your aura expands massively. And as this happens, you start calling in the clients of your dreams. You don't have to hustle anymore. The work, you don't need it. It ends up just coming to you. The amount that I put into marketing my business and doing things now is so teeny tiny compared to what I was doing pre-shadow work. And I make so much more money now because people want you.
Yeah.
They want to know that you're the person who's going to be able to help them. And if they feel your energy is off, you're not that person.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to go to somebody else. They're going to go to the person whose energy they resonate with, the energy they want to emulate, the person they want to become.
Yeah.
You can't get there without shadow work, period.
Mm. Yeah, honestly, as I say, I've worked with you now, I've done a few calls with you, and I've worked with you through Brianna's Ascension Academy. And honestly, if anyone listening to this that's feeling a little bit dubious, and I know some people think, you know, perhaps it's something new to them, it's something a little bit woo, you know, if you're not quite open to things like this, you might be dubious and you might be a little bit scared of trying these things. What would you maybe say to people that are a little bit close to it? What would you say?
Mm-hmm. So this is actually something that was brought up by Carl Jung back in the early 1900s, scientifically backed and proven that we have an unconscious mind. This is science, and it merges with the woo pretty seamlessly, but at its core, this is science, where our brains do this because we only have a certain capacity for information. There's only so much we can carry. And so when we have experiences that the brain doesn't want you to remember for whatever reason, it puts them in other places instead of putting them into the long-term or the short-term storage. And so scientifically, the only way to get this stuff out is to access this part of the mind, which is something that Carl Jung began doing in the early 1900s. And every major psychotherapist you've ever heard of has been trained in this.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets fun. If you go with someone who is woo to do this work, it ends up being so much more lucrative, because I believe, and I think that Hannah, we did some of this work too, that we also carry stuff from past lives. We carry stuff from other versions of us that have existed throughout time. And so you can just pull that much more, become that much more clear, become that person that everybody, when you walk into the room, stops to look at for no reason, just because your energy is that good. And so for anyone who's skeptical, I definitely say try it, because we are never going to be different. We're never going to change if we're not willing to take a step outside of our comfort zone. If I wouldn't have started with shadow work, my life would be so different now. Things would be, gosh, I can't even imagine how different they would be in like a negative way, because I would have just kept doing more of the same thing. I would have kept trying to just stay afloat versus getting to the point where I'm thriving.
Yeah.
It's worth a try. Push yourself. Try something new.
Yeah, and I think to those who are quite new to it and are a bit dubious, and as you say, it's science, yeah. And I've listened to quite a lot of your videos where you've been talking about like the science of it, and actually, you know, as you said, it's science, and I think it's all kind of linked. I don't really know, but like neuroscience, I've heard you talking about
Yep.
quite a bit.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, I mean, so those that are dubious, obviously, like if they look at the facts and the science of it, then it's not as crazy or as woo as people might actually think.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, you know, it's up, everyone's got their own beliefs on like the past life type of stuff. I mean, personally, obviously I'm on a spiritual journey here, and like, I mean, that kind of like woo mindset, and I totally believe after, especially after doing that, the sessions with you, I mean, they really like opened up so much. And it's interesting as well, you know, it's really interesting to know. And I think you get to know yourself through it as well. Sometimes obviously we get lost, don't we, like throughout life, like we
Oh
kind of,
yeah.
you know, we get really lost, and this has kind of helped me almost find myself, I guess, again. You know, I wasn't expecting half the stuff. I mean, can you talk us through like what might happen in like a regular shadow session with you?
Absolutely. Yeah, so the shadow is so depth, like there's so much depth there, right? And anything can come out when we do shadow work. So it's never really certain what it is that we're going to find. We could find a moment where you're 4 years old sitting in your grandparents' house in the corner crying because your sibling made fun of you. You could find a moment when you were first dating a significant other who hurt you in some way, emotionally, physically, whatever else. There's so much that's there. There's so much to unpack from that time. And so during a shadow work session, we never know where we're going. We go in with a little bit of blind faith. And what we do is we go into a very, very deep meditation. There's some people who use hypnosis for this, and hypnosis is great too, but I am a control freak. I like to be awake and lucid and like fully aware of what's going on with me so that I can remember and just be an active part of it. So for me, the deep meditation, so that you're fully aware of where you're going. You can see it, you experience it, you feel it, you know it. And when we get into that deep meditation, what happens is that the unconscious mind is able to come through, because the brain during the day is very active. It's constantly working, it's constantly doing what it normally does. And then the walls come down while you sleep, which is why sometimes we'll have sleep memories of moments like this. We're essentially pulling out the same thing during these deep meditations by lowering the brain's capacity to keep the walls up. We're getting you into such a relaxed state using the autonomic nervous system so that the information is easily accessible. And once we get in there, what happens is you lead me more than I lead you. I ask you where we are. I ask you what you see. And what happens is you start seeing or experiencing a moment, and you tell me about it. You tell me everything about this moment, what's going on for you, how you feel emotionally. And then we use some techniques to make sure that your body stays really calm so that we can unwork some of the trauma that you learned the first time when you experienced it. And we rewrite it a little bit, because the brain is extremely malleable. It believes anything you tell it. And so if you can get yourself very calm while experiencing trauma and tell yourself a different version of events, you're not traumatized anymore. And I'm saying that from someone who suffered cancer and had a ton of PTSD. You can unwire your trauma. That is something that's accessible to you. And that's really what shadow work is all about.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. So amazing. As I say, I've done it myself with you, and I can't vouch for it enough. But can you let us know all about, because I know you have there's a few ways people can work with you. So if people are thinking, oh, I want to try this and give it a go, can you let us know about how people can find out more about you and what you offer?
Absolutely. So you can find me on social media at I am Danielle Massi. You can find me at my website, I am Danielle Massi. And then I have a couple offers of ways to work with me, either one-to-one or in a group setting. One-to-one is just you and I. And as we do the shadow work, you guide me through and we go through everything that you're experiencing. And it's super personal. It's a lot of fun to do it this way. We can go really deep. But my favorite way to do this work is in my group program called the Create Your Light Academy. I chose that name because shadow work sounds dark, right? I said earlier, it does not sound sexy. And I don't want that to be the case, because this is the most transformational work that you can do, period, by a long shot. You want to change your life in 6 weeks? Shadow work, period. And so the Create Your Light Academy is all about going through the darkness with a sisterhood. It's having a group of women. I keep the group small, between 8 and 10 people. And what we do is we venture in together. And every group is chosen in such a way that the shadow things that are addressed tend to be the same for everyone in the group. There's themes, there's things that come up for everyone, and yet your journey is still completely your own. And as we go in and do this work, we go through for about an hour. And then when we come out, I mean, imagine that's pretty deep, right? To be traveling through the shadow for an hour is pretty deep. What happens is we recount our experiences together. We give each other support. I channel through additional guidance. And then you can go on and do whatever it is that you need to do for the next week, which is either doing it again on your own because they're all recorded, or just taking a moment to let it integrate, because it can be really powerful stuff. And always, 100% of the time, by the time the Create Your Light Academy is over, everyone is different. Everyone looks different. Their aura is different. Their energy is different. They quit the 9-to-5 job to start their entrepreneurship, or their business took off over that period of time because all it took was that shift.
Yeah.
Something clicked and people feel it. Your audience feels it.
Yeah.
So that's the Create Your Light Academy. And can you tell I love it?
Yeah. Yeah, and you've got a group, haven't you, on Facebook? Because I've been following your group, and your videos are brilliant. I've been watching them weekly, your live videos that you've been doing. So
thank you.
What's your group called? I will put all the links, by the way.
Yeah.
Everyone, I'll put the links in the show notes, and also those that are watching this on YouTube or via the Facebook group, I will put the links in the comments. But yeah, can you tell us what your Facebook group's called as well?
Of course, the group is the Clarity Club with Danielle Massi. And every single week at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I go on and I talk about some aspect of shadow work, whether it's the neuroscience behind it, what it does for you, past lives, how you know you've experienced them and what they mean, the business aspects of how this creates the millionaire mindset. It literally rewires the brain for success. It's all on there, and I do it every single week.
Brilliant. Yeah, so as I say, I'm going to pop all of those links in the show notes and on all the social media channels. But yeah, thank you. Is there anything else is there anything else you feel like you want to tell people? I think that's kind of, you've covered quite in depth, haven't you? But is there anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
Well, the one thing I would like to add to it, I guess, is that shadow work is the new light work. That is something that's going to change your whole life. Just give it a try and see how you feel. And I have a good feeling that it'll be the thing that changes your life to the point where you will never go back.
I love that. And yeah, I 100% agree, because as I say, I'm kind of on that journey now after meeting you. And actually, can I say thank you to you as well, because meeting you and being introduced to this through you has changed my life. So
I'm so glad.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to wrap it up now, and I will speak to everybody on the next episode.